Welcome back to the Corral. Welcome back to an episode where I demonstrate the acute problems of collecting. And if you're a Superman collector, as I am, it can get really gnarly at times, simply by the amount of material that's going to be in front of us that's collectible. And since I've been doing this a very long time, it gets gnarly quick, okay? You run out of room. The books get heavy. I'll show you some of that. And we'll start there. But we're talking about the books, the collections, the anthologies, the novels, some of those that go into play here. And just going to talk about these very briefly and show them to you. This is really a demonstration on how collecting can take you down different roads. But this is the fun part of collecting. And again, part of this channel that I've created here is about collecting as well, because I think people can enrich their lives by becoming collectors of things. We're all collectors and caretakers. I have an episode about that out there. And let's start with Superman. The first anthology that I received was from my father for Christmas back in the 60s, which is Jules Feiffer's The Great Comic Book Heroes. That's Joe Shuster's drawing on there. This has Superman, of course, the first couple of stories, and it has Captain America, it has Wonder Woman, it has the Spirit, it has the Human Torch, it has the Spectre, it has the Flash, and so forth. This is a quintessential book for your library. I believe this book has become quite pricey on the aftermarket. I've seen it on eBay for $75, $100, which is really incredibly high for this book. I don't think it's a rare book. I think they printed plenty of them. In fact, I know they printed plenty of them. So, I don't know. It's a great book to have. The text by Jules Feiffer puts everything into a proper perspective. So that's the first anthology. This was also the first time I read the original stories, which now, since then, have been reprinted a million times and continue to be reprinted. I'm going to drop that right there. Let's talk about some novels. Since we're about novels, I have to talk about George Lowther. George Lowther wrote the first novel, and this was, 42? Yeah, this was 1942, and here it is, scan coming up. And this is a reprint of it, of course. This is a facsimile, though. It's an exact reprint of everything. And this novel was done, from my understanding, is in conjunction with Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Joe Shuster contributed the illustrations and the color plates to this. So it's profusely illustrated by Joe Shuster, and it has some color plates. Let me show you a color plate here. Here's a really cool black and white illustration from Joe Shuster. You don't see a lot of that around. And I'll just scan through here. I'm looking for a color plate. Of course, I should have been prepared for this, don't you think? And yes, here's a color plate. Finally, it only took me 10 minutes to find the color plate. And of course, the illustrations, you'll see those illustrations are scattered throughout of Joe Shuster's work. So this gives us the first naming for Ma and Pa Kent, which is Eben and Sarah, I believe, in this book. And he also talks about Jor-El. Slight different spelling on the name. I think he did lowercase. Later on, they capitalized the E in L. I'm not sure. I believe they did. If I'm wrong, I'm sure one of the viewers will let me know. So this is a quintessential book to have if you're a Superman collector, whether you can get the first edition, which can be really pricey on the aftermarket, or get this reprint. This is a 1990s facsimile reprint. Mandatory for the Superman collector. Great book to have. Now let's talk about some other novels. This is where it gets fun, okay? In the 60s, Whitman put out this little paperback, Superman Smashes the Secret of the Mad Director, and the illustrations in here are by Al Plastino, and it's a fun book to read. This is not classic. It's illustrated by Plastino. This is not classic literature. It's just fun material about Superman, and Al Plastino was a great artist. So this is an oddity, and it's also a must-have for collectors. It's a rare earlier novel, and I'm glad I have it. They have one like this for Batman too, by the way. So I should tell you who the author is. The author was George S. Elric. On here, that's a great one to have if you're a collector. Superman comic books were also reprinted in paperback. Here's a little dinky one, and they bridged them and put the black and white panels in here. This cost what? This cost $1.25, and I think this is 66 or so. Grosset and Dunlap put this out. No, 78. Sorry. So when the Superman movie was coming out, they did a lot of that. And speaking of which, Elliot S. Magan did the novelization Superman Last Son of Krypton. This paperback edition includes stills from the film with Christopher Reeve. This is also a must-have. There were all of the films with Christopher Reeve had a novelization. I'm just showing you Elliot S. Magan, who incidentally was a writer on Superman for well over a decade. He wrote great Superman stories. He is still out there. He publishes a wide variety of material. I believe this is being reprinted, currently being reprinted. I looked at his website. I think there's a new edition coming out with a different cover. How he managed to get the rights to that from DC, I don't know, but that's what it looks like to me. I may email him and get more information on that. Anyways, Elliot S. Magan was one of the writers. He wrote great stories in the 70s for Superman. That's a must-have. And then of recent vintage, we have Kevin J. Anderson's Enemies and Allies with Batman and the Man of Steel. This is just a contemporary novel. Kevin J. Anderson is better known as a writer of science fiction books. I have quite a lot. I mean, I have stacks of his books. He's a great writer. So there we have some of the first compilations and some of the novels and collections, and there's many, many more. So going forward here in this episode, because I'm going to try and be brief, which is going to be impossible, and I'm only showing you a fraction of what I have, okay? That's the problem. When you're a collector, you have to find room for this stuff. This is recent. This just came out. It's The Death and Return of Superman. You know, the death of Superman, which I'll show you in a minute, ran for multiple issues back in the day, and then they did this special sequence which abbreviates the entire thing, and they put it out as a graphic novel. I think this is the current reprint of that. That's how popular that story is. The Death of Superman and his Return is such a popular series, probably the last great Superman series in my lifetime that I've seen, and I think it's great. So I really enjoyed this abbreviated version. And the best Supergirl story, recent vintage Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, they are going to make a film based upon this. They came out in individual issues, which I have, and then they put it out in a paperback compilation. The new edition, which I saw on Amazon, it has a different cover, but that's fine. This is probably, Tom King wrote this, and this is probably the best Supergirl story I think I've ever read. It's one of the, certainly at the top, really fantastic material. Interesting artwork, so everything is reproduced in here. Fantastic. If you haven't read this, you can get this on Amazon or from DC Direct. I believe they sell copies. That gets us to reprinting the Golden Age. Again, this is out of sequence. They started out with the omnibus edition, the big fat hardcover. I have some of those, but it was more cost effective for me to buy the different volumes. So I have the complete set of these Golden Age paperbacks that they've put out, and they've done that with other characters. They've done it with Superboy. They've done it, or not Superboy, World's Finest, and blah blah blah. These are full color reproductions. Yet again, these stories now have become reprinted so many times. They're even doing it currently. Again, out of order. Superman, Kryptonite Nevermore. I've shown you that I have 3 copies of this Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil classic. This is the hardcover copy of it, which is fantastic to have, and I like it. I think it's great. You know, it's one of the classics from the 70s, and this is full color. So if you haven't read Kryptonite Nevermore and that storyline, I'd be surprised if you haven't, if you're a Superman collector. The next three I'm going to show you, these I picked up in England. So again, we're talking about collecting. So I'm going back to the UK next year, and I'll be looking for more. So the Superman Annual, these are the Menace from the Stars. Now these clearly reprint the American comic books, and they do it in 2-color or 3-color. Why they did that, I don't know. Well, cost is probably more cost effective, and then it becomes black and white. This one is really low grade, but I'm glad I have it. Here's a splash page by Wayne Boring. I think I've talked about Wayne Boring at some point. Superman Storybook Annual. This is in a little better shape, and this also features, well, some full color and some 2-color or 3-color, and it has stories in it that are illustrated. So the UK editions of some of the Superman annuals are really prime things to have. This one is almost exclusively stories. You read the fiction. They don't do that here in the United States. So they're ahead of the game. Superboy Annual, The Adventures of Superman as a Boy. And here is the UK edition. And it's black and white reprints of classic Superboy tales. I love collecting these UK editions. And again, I'm hoping to get more. Now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty here. We're still moving forward. I'm trying to get through this episode. For me, of course, space has become an issue. So, The Death of Superman, this is just the sequence where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7 issues combined here. There was a lot more involved in that storyline. I have 2 copies of this that coincides with the other one I showed you. Here's a great one. Here's Superman for Tomorrow. Jim Lee did the artwork. Brian Azzarello and Scott Williams were involved in this. This is a really good story, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I think Jim Lee is a great artist. He is currently the creative director or whatever fancy title he has at DC, which I think is a shame because I think he'd be better off doing this than that. DC Comics has, the last 5 years alone, they've had one layoff after another. But they're still producing Superman material. They're still reprinting stuff. So Superman, The Power Within, were the shorts, the 2-page shorts that when Julius Schwartz retired, Kurt Swan was relegated to Action Comics. And Action Comics became a weekly, and he got 2 pages, and they collected them all together. And so you get among Kurt Swan's final Superman work from Action Comics during the day, Superman The Power Within. I'm glad they did this because otherwise these stories would be forgotten. That was when John Byrne took over the regular series. And here's another one. These came out of the regular series. Jeff Johns, Gary Frank. I love Gary Frank's artwork. Superman The Secret Origin. They compiled all of those into a graphic novel format, and it's fantastic. Again, I am a huge Gary Frank and Jeff Johns fan. I wish they would work together on Superman now. I wish they were doing it now. It would be, everybody would be better off. DC has jumped on the bandwagon of reprints. Here's just another one, Superman in the 50s. You get lots of interesting stuff here. Adventure Superboy with Crypto, that has been reprinted 1,000,000 times, and there's an edition of their DC's Finest is coming out next year where they're doing more Superboy and Superman and Crypto. Here's an interesting one, Superman American Alien by Max Landis and various people. This is an interesting take on the Superman legend, and I thought it was pretty good, so I have the hardcover of this. I enjoyed it completely. So you see where I'm going with this? You need to make sure you have space in your house because, man, oh man, I have space for these. The comic books and the comic boxes are in storage because I don't have room. Superman Birthright, The Origin of the Man of Steel. Mark Waid wrote it. It's okay. Mark Waid is a good writer. I'm tired of the revamping of the origin, but I did enjoy this face value. I don't think it's a classic by any stretch of the imagination. It's already been done, but it's an interesting take on it. And people are going to do their own thing. They're going to do their own take on Superman. Here's one that's not a comic book. Superman Serial to Serial. This is the documentation about the Superman television show with George Reeves, which became immensely popular and remains popular. And it is illustrated with photographs and so forth. George Reeves at work, and the text is fine. I understand this is a collector's item now. Gary Grossman wrote it, and if you find this on eBay, I think it's going to cost you a few bucks. So I'm glad I have this. I have the entire George Reeves show on DVD in that box set they did. Now we're getting down to part of the problem. The omnibus editions that DC put out, which I'm all in favor of. Here's the Legion of Superheroes, which of course includes Superboy, The Adventures of Superman when he was a boy. And you can see the weight of this is too much. It's really, those paperbacks would have been better. Supergirl's in here too. I loved the 1960s and into the 70s. The Legion of Superhero stories were great. Just fantastic material. So this was volume 1, and on and on. I think DC needs to keep with the paperbacks, And here's the Silver Age. So they started the Silver Age, and because it was a good price, and Michael K. Vaughan brought this to everyone's attention on his channel, it was discounted on Amazon for $50 or something. So I was able to get this at half the price it goes for. And this is exactly what it is. This is the beginning of Superman Silver Age, which would be my era. And it's fantastic. These are so much fun to read. And I'm gonna be buying these continuously. So again, the weight of this is, I should have weighed it. See, it's gotta be 6-7 pounds. All right, a couple of more reprints. We have the Sunday pages have been reprinted in this large size format, and I love the artwork on here. The artwork's not vintage, it's done based upon the original style, but the interior reprints the Superman Sunday page from the newspapers, and this is fantastic. I just love this. I don't think I have all of these actually. I probably need to get them. The Golden Age, this is 46 to 49. Fantastic material. I'll have a scan of this stuff coming up. And then 49 to 53, that's when the aliens come out. They do that with Batman too. The 1950s was UFO, aliens, outer space, all the way were the plot devices used. I think this is great, but again, you're talking about a lot of weight, a lot of space on a bookcase. So the problems of collecting are space related, and so on. Here is the Super Sunday Adventures, 56 to 59. This is the Atomic Age, of course it would be, and you have all of these fantastic Sunday pages reprinted. Here, Wayne Boring did a lot of this artwork too. Let me give you a good shot of that. I'll have a cover scan come up. And then, of course, the dailies have been reprinted. And just one example, because I'm babbling here. And those were black and white, obviously. So the dailies have been reprinted, too. So if you're piecing together Superman's origin and the history, these are vital books to have. If you're a Superman collector, you're going to have the same problem I have. You're going to have stuff piled everywhere. One more. This came out a couple of years ago. Superman the Warriors, 38 to 45. And this is an excellent collection. They also did a Batman. And they are absolutely full color on glossy paper. So this is a great collection to have as well. I'm sure you can find this somewhere. I don't know if it's on Amazon. I'm sure it's on Amazon, and if not, eBay. Superman the Warriors. And let's take a look at what this... Roy Thomas does the intro. And this was 2015. So it's not that old. Again, they did a Batman, and I think they did a Wonder Woman as well. I believe I have those in the other room. And that, my friends, is just a quick little rundown on the joy of collecting, the problems that come with collecting. some of these books were expensive when they came out, you know, and some of them are expensive on the aftermarket, and some of them are hard to find, and some of them are easy to find. But if you're a collector of anything, you know what you're going to do. You're going to get it. You're going to get it one way or another, aren't you? So there we go. Some different types of things, novels, collections, anthologies, whatever. That's just a taste of it, you know. That's just a taste of it. So until next time, my friends, stay well, stay happy. Feed your mind. Read a book.